Hi, my name is Amric McCullough, and I'm a clinical director with PTS. Today, I will be giving a presentation on managing behaviors in the classroom, an OT perspective. I'm sure you work with a lot of behavioral therapists, and I just wanted to state that in the beginning. I do know a lot about behavior just because I've worked with kids for a really long time, and my perspective might be a little bit different than a true behavioral therapist. But actually, before behavioral therapists, occupational therapists did a lot of behavior with, but now in the last 10 years, behavioral therapists have really kind of taken over. So the first thing we're going to talk about is goals. Supporting staff in managing challenging behaviors, provide opportunity to develop strategies as teams, understand how to avoid behavior outbursts, and learn sensory techniques. That's what we're going to talk about today. You guys are a big part in managing behaviors because you're the front lines of dealing with the kids every single day. You probably know them better than the therapists and the teachers. A lot of times you know their triggers, you know their likes and dislikes. So this is, it's important that you're part of the team and that you are telling the teachers and the therapists what you're thinking and why this might be it, and strategizing with the team members. So the ground rules of behavior: talk about behaviors, not judgment of the child. Look forward, not at the past. Failures: behaviors change. It's systematic, not instant. And confidential rules apply for discussions. So, we all get frustrated at times when we're working with kids. I mean, when you're working with people in general, it's difficult. It's a difficult trade that we're in, but that's what we're in because we love the kids and we love the people that we help. But sometimes you get, it's hard not to judge, and that's hard in life in general. If you have a kid that's constantly, throwing their pencil across the room or picking at their pencil or, poking the kid in front of them, it's hard to not say that's the bad kid. So we have to, being professionals, we have to, try to look beyond that and not judge the student and try to figure out why they're doing what they're doing. Look forward, not at the past. So that means, obviously, Johnny last year did the X, Y, and Z. He's probably going to do it this year. No. Every year is a new year for everybody. And what happened last year is in the past, and let's, always being positive and trying to say, it's a new year, and even to the student, it's a new year, I'm I'm going to help you, I'm new with you, let's start off the year on a good foot, and I don't care what happened last year. And honestly, kids love that, because who doesn't like redemption, right? I mean, everyone is striving for that. So especially a kid, they're always worried. And I think they worry more than we think they do. They're more anxious, than we think they are. So if they know that, maybe they hit a kid last year, or whatever it was, they ran out of the classroom or something, they hopefully, I think they're thinking, I'm not going to do that this year, and I'm going to do better, and you guys can talk about that. Behavior is systematic, it's not instant. So obviously any time that you want to change a behavior, it's not going to happen overnight. And we all know that because of our own lives. If you want to quit smoking, it's not going to happen tomorrow. There's a gradual progression. Confidential rules, that means that you're not talking about the student in an elevator, in the hallway. You have to talk about it behind closed doors, and if you're talking with the team members, really be aware of who's around, and you don't ever want to talk about the student in front of the student. Not saying you would, I'm just, this is just something that we all have to be reminded of, from time to time. And oftentimes, if I'm talking about a student, I'll use a different name, or I'll use initials, or I'll just use the first letter of their name.
I think one key component to that is not so much the student or the teachers that they work with typically, but the gen ed teachers in the building, because once a student has an occurrence or something, the gen ed teachers have a labeling system, and that is very hard to remove.
Yeah. What can be done? What do you think can be done?
I have no idea, but it's very frustrating. forward, I'm gonna move past this, I'm gonna do what's expected, there's always that one teacher that still has that label
Right.
that knows exactly how to push that child's buttons.
So maybe that's where you have to talk with the OT or, you know, the speech therapist and say, hey, can we talk to this teacher a little bit and just, you know, feel them out? Or I always think too, if you're modeling the right behavior in front of that teacher, or it doesn't matter, teacher, you know, other professional, whoever in the school, they will eventually get on board with you. But a lot of times, I know it's hard, but a lot of times if you're steady, you know, and it might take a year, it might take 2 years,
Yeah.
you know, but if they see that you believe in the kid and that they have change, pointing out the change to that teacher, those are all very powerful things, you know, to do in order to make a change. But the teacher already has a behavior, and we're talking about behavior today, and behavior is hard to change.
Right.
So they have it in their mind that this is the way it is, and now it's almost like a quest that you have to say, okay, now this is what I have to do. Every time they do this, I'm going to show her this A that this kid got, or 90 or something, and make a point, even if they're not in that class anymore, make a point to say, hey, did you know that Johnny did X, Y, and Z? Isn't that cool? What are they going to do? They're not going to say no. You know what I mean? They're going to go along with it, and maybe they'll think it, and then all of a sudden you'll start to really make that change. But it does take time. But that's what I've done. I've been in really difficult classrooms where the whole class is down on a kid, and I'll just say, look at this. Look what they
the
did.
kids are easy.
Right, right.
But
So contributing factors to behavior. Someone might have low self-esteem, they want attention. That's a lot of behavior, especially in high school, I think. It's all based on attention, negative or positive. Control, they want to control their environment. Medical health, disability, all types, temperament, sensory processing, and avoidance. So anytime, usually, a behavior occurs because of something. Behavior always occurs because of something else. I guess that's what I'm just trying to say. And there's many different forms I had to look up. So temperamental traits that impact behavior. Sensory threshold, how sensitive the student is to the world around them. So that's talking about your senses are coming in, what are you taking in, and how are you handling it. Persistence, how long a person can keep in an activity without giving up. Do they even have any persistence? Do they have that internal drive to keep going and try to figure something out, or do they just want to give up very quickly? Intensity, how strongly a student reacts to any situation. So if they're happy, they're really happy, and they're sad, they're really sad. So regularity, being predictable, having a predictable environment. Activity level, amount of movement and body activity. So one of the things was adaptability. How does the child transition to any new activity, new experience? And transitioning doesn't just mean from math to science. It can be any kind of transition, from sitting to the chair to go get a drink. That's a transition. Distractibility. How is the child's attention? How easily the person is distracted by unexpected stimulus. Approach, are they withdrawn? Initial response, how does the student react to a new person or situation? And then disposition, are they cheerful? Are they kind of a grumpy person? In general, what is their general personality? Prevention versus reaction. It's better to prevent a behavior from occurring than to deal with its aftermath. So that is for sure. If you can try to set up a situation where the student's going to be successful and not continue on a negative behavior, that's way easier to deal with. And I know you guys all know that. So an antecedent, what occurs before, it's what occurs before the behavior. So, and there's many different variables. So environmental, task variables, temporal, instructor, presentation, physical, and medical, any kind of problems that you have physically or medically. Behavior is defined as observable and measurable act. It has a form and it has a function. So I guess I've read a lot about this and I'm trying to understand exactly what a behavior is. And you have to actually be able to see it, and you can't just call this a behavior. There has to be a behavior and then a consequence. So here's some behaviors: running in the hallway, hitting desk with fist, completing schoolwork only, yelling in class, writing and passing notes. This is not a behavior. Bad attitude, lazy, low self-esteem, frustrated, controlling, angry, lacks motivation, and disrespectful. You can actually see the behaviors. You can see a note being passed. But just by someone being frustrated, that's not necessarily a behavior. It's if they are frustrated and throw their paper, then that was the behavior. Does that make sense? So consequence, any event that follows a behavior. So a reinforcement consequence increases future rate of behaviors it follows. And what I read is if you give them a reinforcement consequence, it's going to alert the motivation signals in your brain, and it's going to make you want to do it more. But if you give them a punishment consequence, it actually promotes the fear centers in your brain, and it's going to want you to do it less. So I thought that was really, really powerful, because if you want a student or anyone to change, you better use some positive stuff, because if you use the negative, they're never going to change. And they're always going to be fearful of change if you use a negative consequence. And I'm not saying every single time, I mean, I'm talking negative consequence like maybe hitting or something very drastic. So I just thought that was very telling that we really should be using positive consequences.